Hey guys, tonight we slip past the soot-streaked iron gates of a world you were never meant to see, at least not for long. Imagine arriving on a cold November evening, your stomach hollow as a tin drum, your shoes worn down to the thread. The air smells of boiled bones, old coal, and something sour. This is a Victorian workhouse, and you're about to find out why you probably wouldn't survive a single night here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The door shuts behind you with a shudder. Not a slam, but the kind of slow, metallic groan that makes the hairs rise on the back of your neck. It's the sound of something final. No doorknob on this side. You're in. The first thing you feel is not warmth or welcome. It's paperwork. A gruff man with ink-stained fingers and a mustard-colored waistcoat doesn't look up as he takes your name and age. He jots something down with exaggerated boredom, then barks a number, 367. That's you now. Congratulations. You are no longer a person. You're a ledger entry. 367 is sent to reception, which sounds hopeful until you arrive and find it means a gray stone chamber with a bench, a tub of tepid water, and a woman holding scissors the size of gardening shears. You are stripped, not asked told. Clothes off, jewelry gone. Your belt is removed, even if it barely holds up your trousers. A matron stands by to assist, her tone flat, her eyes colder than the tub. Your hair is cut bluntly, lice prevention, they say. But you had no lice, doesn't matter. Everyone gets the same humiliating crop. And yes, they make jokes about it, too. One boy says they'll use your hair to stuff pillows. You chuckle, but no one else does. Then the delousing soap arrives. It smells like chalk and vinegar and leaves your skin red and raw. Historians still argue whether these cleansing rituals were necessary or just another means of control. Whatever the truth, you now look like everyone else, shaved, scrubbed, and uncomfortably anonymous. You're handed your uniform, a burlap tunic stiff with starch, too short at the ankles and too tight in the armpits. Underclothes are communal and washed once a week. Don't ask who wore yours last. One quirky rule: you're not allowed to walk freely once changed. You're led, like livestock, from one door to the next, your bare feet slapping the cold flagstones. Eventually, you're shown to a hallway with numbers painted crudely above wooden doors. No brass plates, no names. The man who brought you here doesn't tell you what's next. He just nods toward the room at the end, mumbles something about the rules, and disappears before you can ask what time it is or where you're meant to sleep. You're too new to know that no one answers questions in here, at least. Not out loud. In the silence that follows, your ears tune into the building itself. You notice how the walls creak and sigh, how footsteps echo too long, how distant coughs ripple through the air like the slow drip of rainwater down a drain pipe. You're not alone, but you are unseen. A bell rings, not melodious like a church chime. This one is flat, sharp, metallic. It signals the next stage, though you don't yet know what that is. Everyone else does. They begin to move like a single, slow organism, heads down, hands behind backs. No talking. You follow the shuffle, unsure if you're meant to, but afraid not to. Around the corner, you see a set of stairs-worn stone steps descending into darkness. As you reach the bottom, a sign greets you. Obedience is the first duty of the pauper. Catchy. A fellow inmate older, rail-thin, possibly 70, possibly just worn down, leans in as you pass and whispers, "Don't scratch." Makes them think you've got fleas. You flinch. She's right. You didn't realize you were scratching your neck. This place sees everything as a moral failing. Hunger is gluttony. Sadness is ingratitude. Exhaustion is laziness. Even the walls judge you here. And the worst part, you've only been inside for less than an hour. Your footsteps echo against the hallway's damp stone as you're herded into a small, unlit chamber where two other newcomers are already waiting. No one speaks. One of them is a boy no older than 16, staring wide-eyed at the floor. The other is a middle-aged woman with hands that tremble constantly, either from fear or withdrawal. You can't tell. A matron enters. She doesn't announce herself. She just slides open a wooden drawer filled with numbered tokens and hands you one. 367. Again. You're instructed, us without words, to pin it to your tunic. Not your name. Just the number. It dangles awkwardly over your chest like a badge of disgrace. You're now part of the machine. The next room is quieter than the last and colder too. The walls are tiled up to the ceiling, glazed in a color that might once have been white. In the middle stands a copper wash tub, already clouded with lukewarm water from those before you. The scent, soap, bleach, and something less explainable. Something like mildew and old despair. The woman behind you mutters under her breath. You can't catch the words, but you hear the tone cracked, like a bottle emptied too quickly. One by one, you're ushered forward for final inspection. This time it's a full-body once-over. An attendant with yellowed fingernails checks your scalp for lice again and examines your hands for signs of vagrancy. Calluses might help you. Soft palms, they'll laugh at you. Then come the scissors again. Even if you were already shorn, they go back in for corrections. A few inmates over the years resisted, clutching their hair like dignity itself. They lost both. You think this is the worst part? You haven't seen the sleeping quarters yet. You're handed a scratchy gray blanket, folded and already damp with the breath of dozens before you. Some still carry the rumors of previous owners' bedwetters, mad screamers, the woman who didn't wake up. The attendants don't say these things aloud. They don't have to. The other inmates will. They lead you to the men's dormitory, Ward B, or what they jokingly call Heaven's Waiting Room. 30 beds, each one just a plank on 4 legs. No mattress. Just straw sacks that sag in the middle like broken promises. You spot a rat disappearing under one. Welcome home. There's no privacy here. No curtains. No lockers. Everything you own must fit under your bed or be hidden in your boots. And that's assuming you came with anything to begin with. A mainstream fact. Victorian workhouses deliberately stripped people of personal identity as a form of social reprogramming. The idea was to discourage long stays, but all it did was create ghosts who walked but didn't speak. As you find a vacant cot number 17, you pass a man curled up tightly, mumbling to someone who isn't there. His lips move in prayer or madness. A younger boy across from you stares at the ceiling, blinking in rhythm with the tick of the wall clock. Tick, blink, tick, blink. You look away. You lie down, pulling your blanket to your chin. The cot creaks, loudly. Too loudly. A few heads turn. No one says anything, but you feel the heat of their annoyance. Newcomers always forget how noisy everything sounds in a room this quiet. One joke ripples across the room, low and groaned. Snore and you're sleeping with the chamber pot. You think it's a joke, but there's a real pot under the bed across from yours, and it's definitely not empty. The lights go out. Not switched off, just extinguished. A worker walks the room with a long pole and snuffs each lamp. With each flame, A little hope disappears too. The room plunges into near darkness. The only illumination now comes from a small window high on the far wall, where the moon peers in like a nosy neighbor. That's when it really hits you you're locked in. The outer doors were sealed hours ago. No one gets out until morning, not even to use the loo. The building itself becomes a warden, and you're just another warm body in a cold system. You try to sleep, but your blanket itches. The straw pokes through your tunic, and the man next to you has begun whispering again. Somewhere near the back, a child coughs wet, rattling, endless. Eventually, your mind does what it must. It detaches. It floats just above the cot. You start to think about home, or a version of it. Something soft, something warm. You imagine your own bed, a real mattress, sheets that don't smell like mildew and memories. Historians still debate whether the horror of workhouse nights came from the conditions themselves or from the psychological warfare of being made to feel less than human. Either way, you don't sleep. You endure. You're not sure you ever actually slept, but the bell doesn't care. It rings out at precisely 5 on Severnum, a sharp iron sound that slices straight through your skull. Not melodious, not gentle, just pure functional noise. It's rung by a man they call Black Thumb, not because of a gardening habit, but because he lost 3 fingers to a scalding vat and never stopped ringing bells afterward. You rise before your body is ready. Everyone does. There's no room for debate. The floor is even colder than you remember. Your tunic rides up your back with every step, and the dampness of the blanket has clung to your skin like a second layer of punishment. The man to your left mumbles again, still locked in some purgatory of dream and memory. Someone nudges him hard. He groans, rises. The rest follow. You are marched down a corridor with paint peeling from the walls like sunburnt skin. Your feet echo again. There's always that echo in here. The walls are like a cathedral for despair. You enter the dining hall, and if you were expecting variety, darling, no. The room smells of overcooked gruel again. It's a thick sludge of oats and water. Sometimes gray, sometimes beige. Never inviting. It is ladled into bowls made of tin or iron. Warm, but not hot. Vaguely sweet. Maybe from molasses, or maybe someone dropped their tooth in it. There is no talking aloud. You sit in rows, back straight, eyes forward. You are told to keep your hands on the table until all are seated. Then, and only then, you may begin. But you eat in silence. It is not a mealtime. It is a feeding. Some try to sneak glances at others, maybe searching for a flicker of humanity. Others keep their eyes fixed on their spoons like monks reciting silent prayers. A few children blink away tears, and one old man mutters the Lord's Prayer under his breath, substituting bread with bones. A mainstream historical fact, Victorian workhouses maintained strict silence during meals to prevent pauper rebellion. As authorities believed conversation could lead to unrest. That's right. They thought casual chit-chat over cold porridge might bring down the empire. A boy across the table shovels in his portion like it's his last because maybe it is. His hair is matted, and his face carries bruises that don't look accidental. The matron behind him taps her spoon against her clipboard. He freezes, slows. That's the rule. Eat fast and you're greedy. Eat slow and you're lazy. Eat nothing and they call you ungrateful. Quirky tidbit. There were actual rules about the angle of your elbow while lifting your spoon. Too high was vulgar. Too low was suspicious. If it made noise, God help you. Your stomach groans. The gruel goes down like sadness reluctantly, slowly, and with just enough heat to remind you of what's missing. After 15 minutes, another bell rings. That's it. Meal's over. Half the bowls are still half full, but it doesn't matter. They're collected, washed, and reused. If you're caught hoarding leftovers, even crusts, you'll spend the night in the stone room, a punishment cell where rats are the only conversationalists. You are now marched out into the yard for morning inspection. Everyone stands in line, heads bowed. A supervisor walks slowly, watching faces, sniffing for rebellion like a bloodhound. He carries a ledger. If your boots are untied, your name gets a mark. If your tunic isn't belted correctly, another mark. 3 marks and you scrub the privies for a week. A tiny woman ahead of you sneezes. Just once. Everyone freezes. The supervisor halts, turns. You sick. She shakes her head. Eyes wide, too wide. A single tear breaks loose and vanishes into her collar. He stares at her a moment longer, then moves on. But that one moment leaves a crack in the whole group. You can feel it. Everyone tenses. You now know what they fear. The real punishment here isn't the food, the cold, or the pain. It's being noticed. Because to be noticed is to be blamed. And to be blamed is to be punished. The inspection ends, and with a barked order you are separated by gender and ability. Men go one way, women another. Children under 7 are herded toward a creaky annex with faded yellow paint called the nursery, but nicknamed the waiting room for the chimney sweep. You are assigned to Labor Station 3. You don't know what that means yet, but the man ahead of you groans under his breath. Oakum picking, he mutters. Poor lad. You'll find out soon enough. As you're led toward the eastern wing, you hear birdsong outside just faintly. It seems like a mistake, like the birds got the wrong address. But there it is life, just outside these walls. Historians still argue whether the rigidity of these routines was meant to uplift the poor or just break them into obedience. For you, the difference is already academic. You're not thinking anymore. You're following. And the next place they take you will hurt. They lead you into a long, narrow room that smells like seawater and blood. This is the Oakum ward. You're not the first to hesitate at the threshold. A man 2 places ahead of you glances back only once before stepping in and sitting down on a short wooden stool beside a pile of rope as tall as he is. You do the same, silently mimicking the movement. Already learning the rhythm of survival, don't ask, don't pause, don't attract attention. A matron walks by and drops a rusted hook in your lap. That's your tool. No gloves, no guidance. And now, the real work begins. Your task is simple to understand and horrible to execute. Take old ship ropes tarred, knotted, weather-hardened, and unravel them, strand by strand, into piles of fluffy fiber called oakum. These fibers will be reused to caulk the seams of ships, plugged into the wooden cracks to keep the sea out. You're helping the Empire float. Congratulations. Your fingers dig into the first coil. Immediately, you feel it. The thick, gritty black tar coats your skin like oil. The strands fight you. They snap back. The fibers are coarse, each one like a tiny blade. It doesn't take long before your fingertips begin to sting. After an hour, you'll be bleeding. After 4, you won't even feel it anymore. Here's a mainstream historical fact. Oakum picking was considered ideal for workhouse inmates because it was mindless, miserable, and painful, and therefore morally corrective. They didn't want you productive. They wanted you penitent. The man next to you, perhaps 40, maybe younger, it's hard to tell anymore, says nothing, but winces every few minutes. He's been doing this longer. His fingertips are wrapped in cloth. Not clean cloth, just whatever he could tear from his undertunic without anyone noticing. Smart. The fringe detail no one tells you. The tar clings under your nails for days. Even after scrubbing, you'll carry the stench of seawater and oil in your pores like a mark. Even your dreams will smell like old ships and hot rope. The rule is 50 grams per day. That's a small mound, but when your fingers are raw and your back aches from hunching over a too low stool, every gram feels like a betrayal. You try to pick faster. The matron comes by every half hour to check your output. If your pile is too small, she marks your name on a slate. 2 slates in a week and you get reassigned. No one wants reassignment. Rumors say Station 7 is where they send you where there's a treadmill, but no one walks off it smiling. Occasionally the supervisor stops by, arms crossed behind his back, humming a hymn with fake cheer. He tells you this is character-building work. You wonder what kind of character is built from bloodied hands and silence. Maybe a pirate. You try not to laugh. Not here. Not now. Around midday, the matron allows 5 minutes for water. It tastes like iron and mold. Served from a chipped ceramic jug. Everyone sips quickly. Some hide crusts of bread in their tunics for later. You don't have any to hide. Someone coughs again loudly this time. Everyone flinches. The matron stops mid-step and stares at a boy maybe 10 or 11. He tries to hold the next cough in, but it bursts out of him with a splatter. She sighs, writes his number on her clipboard. He'll be in the infirmary by evening. If he's lucky. Historically, many children were assigned Oakum duties in the same manner as adults. They bled faster, but no one cared. Historians still argue whether this labor system was deliberately cruel or just a reflection of industrial pragmatism. Either way, the results were the same. The day stretches on like taffy left too long in the sun. Your back becomes an ache. Your thumbs crack. Your legs go numb from sitting on that hard bench. The worst part, no clocks. You have no idea how much time has passed. You only know the light in the windows shifts slightly, that the room feels warmer now from so many bodies sweating through punishment, and you realize you haven't heard your own voice since yesterday. No talking is allowed here. If you so much as hum, they take away your water privilege. The man beside you breaks the silence once. Don't tug, he whispers. Wiggle. You glance sideways. Wiggle the fibers apart. Don't pull. Hurts less. You nod. Grateful. But a matron catches the moment. 2 eyes meet yours like daggers. She says nothing, but she scratches a mark into her book. You don't know what for, but tomorrow you will. By the end of the shift, your fingers are ringed with black. Tiny cuts decorate your palms like spider webs. You look down and realize you've bled into the fibers. No one cares. The Empire still needs ships, and ships still need Oakum. Someone rings the bell again. Black thumb. Probably. Time's up. You rise slowly. Everything aches. And your back has that familiar curve now, the posture of someone who spent too long looking down, too afraid to raise their head. You don't speak. You don't smile. You just shuffle out with the rest. You shuffle back into the hallway, feet dragging like forgotten broomsticks. The workroom door closes behind you, not slammed, just sealed. Oakum fibers still cling to your sleeves. They stick to your forearms, your hairline, even your breath. You can taste the rope. It's like chewing on old shipwrecks. No one speaks. Talking after labor is discouraged. Voices might remind you you're human. You head toward the communal yard, a bare patch of stone fenced in by high brick walls that never seem to end. You think of them not as barriers, but as cliffs. Behind them, the rest of the world. A world that once had birdsong and blankets and birthdays. The sky is gray, not rainy, just indifferent. And there, in the middle of the yard, stands a stone bench, empty, cold. It exists for two reasons: punishment and observation. You're about to experience both. You stop when the matron calls your number, 367. Step forward. You hesitate just a second too long. Now, you step forward. She points at the bench, says nothing else. You sit, and sit, and sit. For what crime? Whispering. Remember that moment in the Oakum ward? That nod of thanks to the man beside you. You're being punished for connection. This is the bench of reflection. Not officially, I needn't, but everyone calls it that. You're meant to sit here for an hour, in full view of the others. As a quiet lesson, do not stand out. Do not form bonds. Do not forget your place. You try to look invisible. Fail. One small girl walking past makes eye contact with you. Her mouth twitches half pity, half fear. She's 5, maybe 6. She's holding her brother's hand so tightly it turns white. You think of how they say the workhouse breaks children first. Makes sense, they're smaller, softer, easier to reprogram. Mainstream historical fact. Victorian workhouses were specifically designed to separate family members, including children, from parents, to prevent sentimental weakness. They genuinely thought love made people lazy. Someone once tried to fight back through a tin bowl at a warden. He got 7 days in solitary and lost 2 teeth. That story's now folklore. The bowl is still around. Dented. Passed in secret like a relic of resistance. You wonder if it's true. You hope it is. Eventually the bell rings again. Your punishment is over, but your shame still lingers. You're marched next to the washing quarters, where the air thickens with steam. Warmth. Finally, no. Not like that. This isn't a bathhouse. It's the laundry room. You're not told why you've been reassigned so quickly. Perhaps they rotate roles to confuse you. Perhaps they want your hands to sting in new ways. The room is a jungle of pipes, vats, and ringers. Giant tubs filled with near-boiling water hiss with every dunk of linen. Clouds of mist hang in the air like ghosts that never left. You're handed a wooden paddle. Your job: stir the linens for hours. Every so often, someone lifts a shirt from the water with tongs and throws it into the wringer, a metal beast that crushes fabric like it holds a grudge. You think it might crush bone too, if you gave it the chance. A girl across from you, maybe 16, works the paddle like it's a punishment she's accepted. Her arms are spotted with blisters. She sees you looking and offers a tired smile. Then she shakes her head. Don't smile, her eyes say. It makes it worse. Quirky tidbit. The soap they use is made from boiled animal fat and lye. It's so caustic that inmates developed a ritual spitting on their own hands to lessen the burn. A little dignity in a place with none. The floor is always wet, slippery. Matrons shout if you fall. Watch your step. Pauper. You stir. You sweat. You cough. The steam clings to your throat like cotton soaked in vinegar. And yet, some workers have been doing this for years. One woman is nearly blind from the fumes. They keep her on because she's quiet and never complains. Historians still argue whether rotating jobs like laundry and Oakum were meant to give variety or just mask the monotony of systemic suffering. Either way, your wrists are now red. Your sleeves soaked. Your legs ache from standing on stone for so long your soles have gone numb. You drop a shirt by accident. It lands in the ash bucket. Pick it up, the matron says flatly. You hesitate, only for a moment. She steps toward you. Do you think your time is more valuable than the others? You shake your head. Speak. No, miss. Pick it up. You do. The shirt is heavy and scalding. Back to stirring. You wonder how many shirts are in this tub. Hundreds? Each one once belonged to someone with a name. Someone like you. They're washed here, worn again and washed again, until the fabric gives out or the inmate wearing it does. The laundry never ends, and neither does the day. Eventually, long after the fog has soaked into your bones, the final bell rings. Work is over. You think, but the worst is yet to come. The bell doesn't chime so much as groan. It's the end of shift signal, though. Shift is a generous word for 12 straight hours of blistered fingers and scorched lungs. You drop the paddle back into the tub, steam clinging to your skin like a second, wetter version of you. Your hands are pink and puckered, the tips raw, and underneath your nails a mixture of soap scum, ash, and something that used to be cotton. No one says good job. No one says anything. You're herded out of the laundry ward into the main corridor, feet squelching, clothes damp, eyes stinging. Someone ahead of you stumbles. They're yanked upright before they hit the ground. A matron mutters something about malingerers and scribbles a name on her chalkboard. You're beginning to learn if your name gets written down. Something bad happens. Not today. Maybe. But soon. And now it's time for punishment hour. They don't call it that. Of course, it's just the hour when infractions are tallied and consequences assigned. The workhouse calls it evening correction. You're escorted into a dim chamber that smells like damp wool and vinegar. Benches line the walls. At the front, a desk. Behind it, a man with hollow cheeks and a stare that would curdle milk. This is Mr. Plymley. He's not the master, but worse, he's the ledger man. The scorekeeper. He calls out numbers. Slowly, deliberately. Yours is not the first tonight. 74 false illness. 112 loaf hoarding. 367 unauthorized speech. There it is. You raise your hand like it matters. He doesn't look at you. 10 minutes solitary. That's all, he says. No trial, no protest. Just 10 minutes. A matron leads you down a hallway with soot-dark walls and flickering sconces. The door at the end is smaller than it should be, built for someone who has no right to stand tall. The room inside is the size of a wardrobe. Stone floor. No window. Just a wooden bucket in the corner and walls that smell like mildew and bad decisions. The door shuts. And you're alone. And it is dark. Not just dark like nighttime. Dark like ink. Like forgetting. The kind of dark that squeezes you until your thoughts echo. You don't know how long 10 minutes is anymore. There are no clocks in here. No sound, either. Just your breath. Just your thudding pulse. Just the quiet hiss of your own panic starting to settle in. Mainstream fact. Solitary confinement in workhouses was often used for moral instruction, especially against disobedience or emotional expression. Even crying could land you in the box. It's not just isolation, it's humiliation. A voice in your head asks, am I bad or am I just tired? Outside, you hear footsteps. Not coming for you, just passing by. The world continues. Without you. Quirky tidbit. Some solitary cells were once used as pantries or storage closets before being rebranded as moral rectifiers. They didn't build them for punishment, they just realized how well they worked for it. After what feels like hours, but was probably 6 or 7 minutes, you hear the latch turn. The door creaks open. Light stabs into your eyes like needles. Out. You step into the corridor, blinking hard, trying to remember how legs work. They don't escort you back to the dorm. They send you to the reflection table instead, just you. A pencil stub and a slate. You're told to write the phrase, Obedience brings redemption. Over and over, until you fill the entire surface. You wonder, briefly, if you spell obedience wrong, will they notice? They will, and you'll write it again. On your skin, if needed. Historians still argue whether such disciplinary measures were intended to reform or simply repress. The line is thinner than you'd think. Eventually, the slate is taken. You're handed a cold crust of bread. Dinner, no butter, no soup. Just a crust and a cup of water that tastes like it remembers rust. You sit on a bench in the corridor and chew slowly. The bread is so hard it cracks slightly when you bite it. It was probably fresh a week ago. You think, absurdly, of toast? Real toast? With jam? With warmth? You'd cry if you weren't so afraid someone might hear you. That's the trade here in motion for survival. You can feel or you can endure. Not both. Then comes bedroll call. Everyone lines up. Still numbered. Still silent. A few speak in code coughs. Shrugs. The way they tap their fingers. Morse code of the oppressed. You're marched to the dormitory. Same bed. Same blanket. Same smell. You lie down and close your eyes. But tonight, you know something new. It can get worse. You've only scratched the surface of what they're willing to do to keep you quiet. Sleep won't come. Not easily. But you pretend, because pretending is safer than asking for anything. The bells will ring again soon. And tomorrow? They might not call your number for punishment, but they will call it for something else. And you're beginning to fear what that something else might be. You wake to the sound of coughing. Not the dainty, polite kind. No. This is wet, guttural. Hacking the kind that makes your lungs ache just hearing it. It echoes through the dormitory like a broken music box gasping its last notes. You crack your eyes open. It's still dark. No bells yet. But people are already stirring. They never really stop. Someone near the door is moaning softly. Not loud enough to get noticed, but enough that you know they're hurting. You think about asking if they're all right. Then you remember yesterday. The slate, the punishment, the silence. So you roll over. The bell comes eventually. Of course, it always does. Black thumb again. Reliable as rot. You file out in your tunic stiffer now, having dried in the night air with the shape of yesterday's labor still clinging to it. It smells like soap and sweat. The corridor's chilly, and your bare feet slap against stone that never warms. No matter the season, you're not sent to laundry or Oakum today. You're not even sent to scrubbing or mending. No, this time. Your march past the familiar wards, through a hallway you've never seen before. It narrows. The light dims. You notice that the other inmates being led there walk differently slower. Heads lower, like they're trying not to be noticed even in their own skin. The air grows musty, thick, and then you see the sign. It's nailed to a crooked door frame in faded red paint infirmary. You're taken inside. Welcome to the place where the sick are sent not to heal but to wait. To wait for fever to break. Or bones. Or breath. Mainstream fact. Victorian Workhouse infirmaries were the de facto hospitals for the destitute. Understaffed, undersupplied, and largely unregulated. They became a grim halfway point between life and death. Inside, the smell hits first bleach and sweat and something underneath it all. Something human and old. The beds are lined up wall to wall, like soldiers laid flat, each one filled. Some with motionless bodies, some with twitching limbs, all with eyes that stare too long or too little. A nurse hands you a bucket and cloth. That's your task today, wiping brows, changing linens, emptying the pans. No training, no mask, Just you, a mop, and the unspoken knowledge that this is where the others end up. A boy 2 years younger than you is shivering so hard the cot creaks with him. You dab his forehead with water. He doesn't thank you. Doesn't even seem to know you're there. You're handed another task carrying a basin down the corridor. Inside it, a severed toe. Someone lost it to frostbite. You try not to gag. You fail. The nurse doesn't flinch. First time. She mutters. You'll get used to it. You hope not. You see a girl in the corner ward who looks about 12. Her face pale as wax. She's not moving. Not even her chest. You ask quietly, should we tell someone? Another patient across the aisle answers, voice dry as parchment. They already know. And you begin to understand. There is a rhythm here. An order. People arrive. People linger. People disappear. And no one marks the moment. Historians still argue whether the workhouse infirmaries helped extend life or simply delayed its ending in more undignified ways. There's no medicine, just herbal compresses and old wives' remedies. The only doctor visits twice a week if he remembers. In the meantime, you're told to sing softly if someone starts wailing. Apparently, it calms them. You try. You hum something tuneless, something half-remembered from a better time. A lullaby or a funeral hymn? A woman with wisps of white hair clasps your hand when you pass. Her grip is stronger than you'd expect. Don't forget who you were, she says. You open your mouth to respond, but she's already looking past you. At something behind your shoulder or someone long gone. One quirky detail you learn fast. The sheets in the infirmary are dyed gray, not white. White shows stains. Gray just hides them. It's practical. And deeply sad. You clean until your arms burn and your stomach growls. There's no meal break in the infirmary. No gruel ladled here. If you're lucky, someone leaves a crust by the water basin. If not, you wait until night and hope you're remembered. You're not allowed to sit. By midday, your back has taken on the curve again workhouse posture. You stretch once, and someone snaps. Don't stand idle. It's always the same any moment, not in motion as suspicion. Eventually, someone pulls a sheet over a patient's head. You're not told their name. Just handed the mop again. You don't ask where the body goes, you already know. The infirmary is quiet when the bell rings again, quieter than the dorms. Quieter than the yard. But the silence is different here. It's not obedience. It's surrender. By the time you're sent back to the general ward, your shirt is damp with sweat, and your hands carry the faint scent of carbolic and copper. The infirmary stays with you not like a memory, but like a film you can't scrub off. You see it in the way the others avoid looking at you now. You've crossed into another circle of the workhouse, one step closer to vanishing, and now, it's time for your next lesson in suffering. You're assigned to the children's wing, not as a patient, as a helper. You think it might be a mercy, something gentler, something lighter. It is not. The room is too bright. Windows let in a cheerless light that only sharpens the contrast between the pale walls and the paler faces within them. Small children, some barely walking, some old enough to have stopped speaking, sit in lines like rows of hollow-eyed dolls. There are no toys, no colors, just slates and a single broken chalkboard with the words, "Cleanliness is godliness," scrawled in rigid cursive. You're introduced to the supervisor, Miss Gray. That's what she says to call her. No title. No first name. Just Gray. She hands you a rag, a list of names, and a warning. Do not engage them emotionally. You are here to supervise, not console. The children don't laugh. They don't fidget. They don't look at you. They sit. They fold their hands. They wait. Mainstream historical fact. Children in Victorian workhouses were subjected to early regimentation, often from the age of 3 or 4. Play was discouraged. Laughter, seen as a sign of poor discipline, could be punished. You walk down the rows, checking posture, writing names next to columns marked clean, quiet, or needy. You hate the words already, especially the last one. Needy earns a mark that gets them sent to isolation, a small room with nothing but a stool and a Bible. Some barely out of diapers. A girl with red hair that looks like it used to be lovely taps her slate with her fingernail. Just once. It's a small rebellion. Gray notices. Number 12, she says sharply. The girl is led out of the room. No one else moves. You learn quickly that even crying can get them into trouble. So they don't. They've learned to pull their emotions inside, like turtles retreating into their shells. You help a boy tie his bootlace. He whispers, "Thank you." You smile. Gray sees. Later, you'll be told not to return. Not as punishment, just as redirection. Your face is too expressive. Your presence too human. But for now, you keep wiping down slates, replacing dull chalk, watching as these children are shaped into quiet, orderly ghosts of themselves. One quirky truth about this ward. The children have a secret language. You notice it after a while, patterns in how they blink, how they scratch their necks, how they fold their arms. It's rudimentary, but it's real. A resistance built from nothing but movement. A boy blinks twice when you pass, then scratches his elbow. Another blinks back, and you realize they're talking. They're still alive in there, under all the silence. Historians still argue whether children in workhouses were victims of failed charity or a brutal form of social engineering. Either way, the results are the same. They grow up faster, and stranger, when the day ends, you're excused from evening labor. A gift, you're told, for good behavior. But you're not sure it feels like one. You're given an hour of free time, which is, of course, a lie. You may not speak. You may not leave the yard. You may not sit unless invited. You may not read unless it's the Bible. And even then, only allowed and only the approved passages. You wander instead to the edge of the courtyard, where the fence rises, high and rusting, topped with iron spikes shaped like thorns. You press your hand to the stone. Cold, solid, unmoving. There's chalk graffiti near the base. A small drawing, probably old. A sun, crudely sketched. A bird beside it. The irony is unbearable. You hear someone behind you whisper, "They used to let us out. Once a year. For a walk. On Easter." You turn, but no one's there. Just you. The wall. And the silence. When supper is served, if you can call it that, you get watery broth and a hunk of something that once aspired to be bread. It smells of yeast and despair. You eat it anyway. The children file into the hall after you, heads bowed. No voices, just the soft squeak of shoes on stone. They're led to separate tables. No eye contact allowed between wards. A toddler tries to hum. Just 2 notes. He's removed. No one flinches. You realize it's not that the rules are strict. It's that the people inside them have forgotten how to live without them. And so have you. You chew slowly. You breathe slowly. You survive. But the children, they're not surviving. They're disappearing. Tonight, you sleep in the dormitory, but not before you're told where you'll be working tomorrow, the laundry. Again, the thought stings. You can still feel yesterday's heat in your bones, still see the ringer in your dreams, but you nod, because nodding is what you do now. You lie down, same cot, same blanket, Same breathless quiet. Only now, there's a draft. Winter's whisper has crept through the cracks, and the stone walls feel even colder. Someone sneezes. Someone else coughs in response. Like a call and response of misery. You pull your blanket tighter, but it's too thin. It always has been. The bell wrenches you awake like a hook behind the ribs. You swing your legs over the edge of the cot and feel your feet hit stone. A new cold. One with teeth. There's frost on the inside of the window panes now. Tiny spider webs of ice tracing out shapes that look almost like flowers. Or maybe shattered glass. The matron walks through the aisle barking names. You're not sure why they bother. Everyone is already up. Today's new cruelty. They've improved the system. You will now be working double shift in the laundry. There's been a backlog, apparently. Some sort of event at the workhouse infirmary has created a surge in soiled linens. You don't ask what kind of event. You can guess. The laundry room is worse in the winter. Because of the steam? It doesn't feel warm, it feels wet. Like wearing someone else's breath. And the cold doesn't stay out, it settles in your bones and fights with the heat. So your skin burns and shivers at the same time. The wringer screeches like a dying cat. The soap burns more than before. Maybe the mix is stronger. Maybe your hands are just weaker. You drop a sheet. It lands in the blackened corner pool near the furnace. The matron glares. One more and you scrub the latrines. You believe her? A woman beside you hums. Just a soft melody. Familiar. It takes a moment before you recognize it. Greensleeves. She hums it with the rhythm of muscle memory. Not rebellion. It's the song her body remembers, even if her voice is fading. The matron snaps her fingers. None of that. The woman stops, but you see it now several others have caught the tune. They're not humming, but their paddles stir to the same beat. It's almost like dancing. Quirky detail. There were workhouses where rhythmic movements like drumming fingers or tapping feet were labeled incipient disorder. Joy, even the accidental kind, was suspect. You keep your paddle steady, keep your back bent, but your mind is lifting just a little until the bell rings again and it's time for inspection. You're lined up outside, steam still curling off your skin. The air has turned sharp, like broken glass in your lungs. A wind cuts through the yard, tugging at your sleeves. Mr. Plymley, the ledger man, walks the line. He's holding a new list, and he's smiling. You don't trust that smile. Today, he announces a special treat. You flinch. The Board of Guardians is visiting. There's no applause, no smiles, just stiffer spines. The board is the governing body that oversees workhouse operations, a collection of clergymen, landlords, and the occasional lady of charity who believes a tour of suffering counts as philanthropy. You're told to look clean, but not too clean. Grateful, but not eager. Silent. Above all, you're marched back inside to your cots. Told to stand at the foot, hands behind back, eyes forward. No speaking unless spoken to. The doors open. A flurry of boots, velvet cloaks, and perfumed airs rushes in like royalty visiting a dungeon. A woman in fox fur looks at your blanket and whispers, "Oh, how quaint." A man with whiskers and a polished walking stick stops in front of you. He studies you. He nods. "How long have you been with us?" "Young man." You begin to answer, but before you can get 2 words out, the matron cuts in. He's new. Grateful. Strong. The man smiles. You smile too, but it's not yours. The board leaves after 20 minutes, and everything changes, because that's the real reason they came. Not to help, not to witness, but to remind you even the rich have keys to your prison. Mainstream fact. Many inspections of Victorian workhouses where staged matrons scrubbed the wards extra hard beforehand, and inmates were warned to appear content or face later punishment. After they leave, everything tightens. You're back in the laundry by noon, but now the matron watches like a hawk. You've been seen, and being seen is dangerous because now they expect perfection. The bucket you carry is too full. You spill a few drops. A sharp slap cracks across the back of your neck. You'll do better tomorrow. You nod. You always do. But as you return to the dorm that night, something feels different. It's not hope. Not exactly. But something small inside you has stopped shrinking. You saw their faces, and they saw yours. And that changes things. Even here. Even now. The doors to the dormitory groan as they close behind you. Night has dropped like a curtain. Sudden and heavy. The kind of dark that doesn't invite dreams but traps them. You walk toward your cot with shoulders hunched. Not just from fatigue, but from the weight of being noticed. The room is quieter than usual. Fewer coughs. Fewer shuffles. It's the quiet of people waiting. You lie down, folding your blanket with a practiced rhythm that makes it look like sleep might follow. It won't. Not easily. Not tonight. Because tonight, the others are talking. Not aloud, of course. They're talking in looks, in shifts of weight, in the flicker of an eye across the room. Something is happening. You see it clearly when matron leaves. The moment the latch clicks, 4 heads turn in the same direction, toward the east wing. Someone stands, walks casually, disappears behind a partition. No one stops them. You wait 5 minutes, then follow, and you see at a door slightly ajar. Beyond it, a narrow corridor not listed on any chalkboard schedule. Dusty, unlit, forgotten, but not unused. You step inside. The hallway leads to a locked storeroom, but the lock hangs open. Inside a makeshift exchange, crusts of bread, pins, shirt buttons, pencil stubs, even a few coins. A trade table, jury-rigged out of crates. A boy of maybe 14 manages it all. Quiet and quick. This is the black market of the workhouse. 1 crust for a needle, 2 for half a candle, 5 for something better, a secret message, a scrap of real newspaper, a boiled sweet if you're lucky. You trade half your bread from yesterday for a stub of soap. A luxury. You're not supposed to be here, but no one speaks. Because this is where whispers live. You catch the words just once escape. You freeze as a soft word. Barely breathed, but it hits like thunder. A girl with sharp eyes and bandaged fingers leans in. They say there's a break in the fence behind the coal shed, but you have to time it right. No moon, no bells. You nod like you're not interested, but now the word is inside you, thrumming like a second heartbeat. Back in your cot, you stare at the ceiling and imagine it climbing the fence, slipping into the night, breathing air that doesn't belong to someone else. But reality is louder and heavier, because tomorrow you're assigned to one of the worst jobs of all. You're told before breakfast inspection hall. Your task help prepare the rooms before the board's next surprise visit. Strip the beds, clean the chamber pots, and polish the boots of the guardians, the very ones who stroll in. Smell the soap, and call it charity. You spend the morning in the inspection parlor, dusting shelves that haven't seen use in years. The wallpaper peels in delicate curls, like a polite kind of decay. You're handed polish and rags. The boots are laid out like trophies on a long bench. Shiny leather, brass buckles, tall, proud, imperial. You buff them until your wrists cramp. And as you work, a matron stands over you, watching, not saying anything, Just breathing? Loud? Measured? You understand. You are polishing the shoes of the people who built the cage you now live in, and you're doing it with gratitude. Or pretending to. Mainstream historical fact. Workhouse inmates were often made to clean and serve the visiting guardians, reinforcing a hierarchy of shame masked as order. When the job is done, you're sent to sweep the entry corridor. There, just inside the vestibule, is a stone plaque. You've passed it before? Never looked at it. Today you do. It reads, "He who does not work shall not eat." Words chiseled deep into granite. Words meant to last longer than the people who carved them. You spit just once at its base. Tiny rebellion. Gone in a blink. A quirky truth. Some workhouses included fake fireplaces and ornamental rugs to comfort visitors, while inmates were forbidden from entering those rooms at all. You sweep until your arms ache. Then the bell rings. Again. Back to your cot. Back to your blanket. But something follows you in the dark tonight. It's that word again. Escape. You turn it over in your mind like a coin. Smooth on one side, dangerous on the other. And for the first time since you arrived, you dare to wonder what's beyond the fence. You wake up before the bell. Not because you're rested, but because your dreams have turned on you. They've grown too sharp. Too loud. They speak in footsteps and doors slamming and names being scratched off ledgers. You don't remember the details, only the feeling of falling and not landing. You sit up in the dark and feel the cold air nibble at your neck. Frost rims the window panes again. A single candle glows near the door, casting shadows that stretch like long fingers across the floor. Today, you're told, you'll be helping with grounds maintenance. That means outside, which means something worse the tools shed. You've heard stories. The others don't talk much about the shed, not because they're afraid of the labor, but because of who works there. The ones who've snapped or come close. The ones who used to be talkative and now mutter to walls. The ones with eyes that don't blink right anymore. You're handed a rake. The teeth are bent. The handle splinters. You're marched to the rear courtyard, past the gardens that no longer grow anything but weeds and the compost pits that steam like cauldrons. A boy named Harold works here, used to be a clerk. They say, got caught forging meal chits. Now he trims hedges that don't need trimming and talks to invisible people named Mother. You keep your head down. Your job is to clear the yard of leaves and scraps. Simple. Repetitive. Mindless. Which is fine until you reach the shed. The door is crooked. The lock dangles open. You don't want to go in, but you're told to bring back a hoe. You step inside. It smells like damp wool and forgotten things. There's a bucket in the corner with old nails, a torn glove, and a rag that may have once been white. And there's a man sitting in the far corner, rocking. You don't know his name. No one does. They call him Gentle Jack, which tells you very little. He's wrapped in 2 coats. Even though he never goes outside, his hands are enormous. His beard is a mess of gray and ash. He sees you, smiles. There used to be music here, he says. You nod slowly. He doesn't blink. They don't let the birds sing anymore. You take the hoe and back out of the shed. Back to the cold. Back to reality. Mainstream fact. Many workhouses kept their mentally ill inmates locked in utility buildings or infirmary overflow rooms. Care was minimal, and records were often non-existent. The rest of your shift passes in a haze. You rake. You pile. You're given a scrap of boiled carrot for your efforts. No broth. Just the vegetable. Alone. Orange against a tin plate. It feels like a metaphor you're too tired to explain. Later, at evening inspection, you're asked, did you speak with Jack? You hesitate. Say no. It's safer. but something about him lingers. That night, you overhear a whisper. 2 cots down. The escape plan is gaining shape. There's talk of a loose panel in the fence behind the coal shed, of a night with no moon coming soon. But there's also talk of someone being caught last week. A girl. Red-haired? The one from the children's ward. She's not here anymore. Quirky rumor. Some workhouses kept escape attempts quiet not for legal reasons, but to avoid shame. If you ran and failed, no one would acknowledge it. You just vanished from roll call. A number no longer called. A cot quietly reassigned. You lie in bed and watch your breath cloud in the cold air. And you wonder, was it worse that she failed? Or that no one even says her name? Historians still argue whether the mental deterioration inside workhouses came from the conditions or from the absence of being remembered. You pull your blanket higher. You close your eyes. You dream of Jack's words, they don't let the birds sing anymore. And you wonder, what happened to someone who stays here too long? What happens when you forget what music sounds like? The next morning, your name isn't called, which in the workhouse is a mixed blessing. You're not assigned a task. You're not summoned to the matron's desk. You're just left alone. But being left alone can be more dangerous than being seen. You stand by the dormitory wall with your hands folded behind your back, watching the others shuffle out to their posts, Oakum rooms, laundry vats, scrub squads. Their eyes avoid yours. Not out of malice, but out of caution. Because something has changed. You've become noticeable. That's not good. A matron appears mid-morning and gestures without words for you to follow. She leads you down a corridor that runs behind the chapel and stops in front of a warped wooden door. There's no sign, just a smell you're in. Iron and vinegar. She pushes it open. You step inside. And there it is, the workhouse infirmary again. But this time, you're not assisting. You're assigned. She hands you a folded cloth and mutters, Ward 7. You already know what that means. Ward 7 is where they send the ones no one can help. The fevered, the dying, the untouched. It's dim inside, and not out of neglect but by design. The windows are shuttered. Lamps are turned low. There's a belief here, superstition, almost that too much light hastens death, or invites it. You walk between the cots. Most are occupied. You glance once at a man whose eyes are open but unfocused. His mouth moves in a rhythm that doesn't match his breathing. You can't tell if he's whispering prayers or reliving an argument no one else can hear. At the far wall, you're stopped by Nurse Elkins, a woman built like an oak beam, all creases and compression. She hands you a basin and points to a figure curled tightly on the cot. It's a young woman. Or girl. You can't tell her hair has fallen out in patches, and her skin is taut and flushed. She's wrapped in a thin blanket that's soaked through with sweat. Change her linens, the nurse says. You hesitate. She says nothing more. You begin. It's hard to move someone so light and still make them feel heavy. Every part of her feels breakable. When you lift her shoulder, her eyes flash open but they don't see you. They flicker, then close again. Mainstream fact: Victorian Workhouse infirmaries routinely used inmates to tend to the dying. No medical training was given. Just cloth, rags, and cold water. As you work, the room becomes quieter still. A man groans in the corner, then stops. You don't look. You're learning what not to look at. You finish your task. Sit beside the girl. The nurse says to sponge her forehead every 30 minutes. So you do. Time loses meaning in the infirmary. Everything slows, becomes distant. Even the sound of the bell at noon feels like it's happening to someone else. A few cots down, someone starts to cry. Quietly. A breathy, broken cry that sounds like air escaping a kettle. You turn to look. It's Harold the rake boy from the shed. He's not raking anymore, you see now why. He rocks back and forth on his cot, murmuring numbers. His hands twitch. A nurse moves toward him with a cloth soaked in something pungent. He resists. Barely. Like a man resisting rain. A quirky detail. Some infirmaries dosed difficult patients with soothing syrups, a mix of laudanum and alcohol. The goal wasn't healing, just quiet. You keep sponging the girl's forehead. Her breathing is shallow. The fever has painted her cheeks pink and her lips white. You say nothing. Because what would you say? Hold on to what the nurse comes back and takes your cloth? Says she won't last the night. She says it without malice. Or sadness, just like a weather report. Then she nods for you to leave. You step into the hall, and the cold slaps you like a truth. It's snowing now. Not thickly, just soft. Feathery flakes drifting down past the high, soot-streaked windows. The air smells cleaner out here. You wonder if she'll ever smell that again. Or if she ever did. Historians still argue whether the workhouse infirmary system was a necessary evil or a slow-motion burial. Either way, it didn't pretend to save everyone. That evening, you're not returned to the dorm. You're told to sleep in overflow room B closer to the infirmary. Your cot is thinner, the room smaller, but you're alone. Alone. Except for the knowledge that tonight, someone will die. And tomorrow you might be asked to carry the body. And no one will say her name. You wake in the dark, throat dry, arms aching from yesterday's silence. No bell this time. Just footsteps. Soft. Heavy. Purposeful. A knock on the frame. Then Nurse Elkins's voice. Low and clipped. She passed. Get dressed. You don't ask who. You already know. You rise, pull on your damp tunic, and follow her into Ward 7. It's quieter than ever, a silence that feels permanent. The cot by the far wall is empty now. The blanket folded neatly on top. The kind of fold that says someone did this carefully. But quickly. The girl's body lies on a stretcher just outside the door. You're handed the end of it. No words, no ceremony. You lift. It's lighter than you imagined. Death always is. The heaviness comes later. You carry her down a hall lined with utility closets and cracked tiles. Each step echoes not loudly, but with that peculiar workhouse hollowness, as if the building has learned how to swallow sound in all the wrong places. At the back of the complex is a courtyard you've never entered before. A gate you've never seen opens with a long, reluctant screech. The pauper's yard. It's not a graveyard in the way you picture. There are no stones, no flowers, no names. Just rows of sunken rectangles in the earth, flattened patches where the ground dips slightly, as if it's still trying to remember who lies beneath. You help lower the stretcher. A man in a soot-black coat oversees the burial. He does not introduce himself. He doesn't even look at the body. He holds a clipboard, reads a number, and that's it. No hymn, no prayer, no final words. Just 352. Female. Transferred from Ward 7. Deceased. He checks a box. You stand there, holding your breath like it might warm her memory. But there's nothing. Not even wind. The gravedigger isn't even a man. He's a boy probably 12 assigned the role after he broke a chamber pot last month. He covers the body with a shovel's worth of earth. Then another. Then stops. The matron claps once. You turn. You're dismissed. Later that day, back in the hallways, no one mentions her. Not once. You listen, hoping someone might say, "Did you hear, or she was so young?" Nothing. The cot is reassigned before sunset. The blanket washed. The name never spoken again. Mainstream fact: Victorian paupers were buried in mass graves. Occasionally, multiple bodies were layered into a single trench. Headstones were rare. Names often vanished from official records, replaced by numbers or blank spaces. You're reassigned to kitchen duty for the afternoon. A break, they call it. The irony is sharp. The kitchen smells like wet ash and boiling marrow. You're not cooking, just stirring. Giant pots of something that used to be peas or potatoes. It's impossible to tell anymore. You think you see an onion, but it vanishes like a ghost beneath the surface. You ladle out portions into bowls. Count them. 73, the same as yesterday. Until matron leans over and whispers, 72 now. Don't overserve. And just like that, the number is gone. Deleted from the arithmetic of need. Quirky detail. Some workhouses tracked death like they tracked firewood on chalkboards. Scrubbed clean every Friday. That evening, you eat last. The bowl handed to you is thinner than usual. You eat quickly, not out of hunger but to finish, to get to your cot, to forget. Back in the dorm, the snow has grown heavier. A sheet of white drapes across the courtyard, softening the world in a way the workhouse never allows. You sit on your cot and stare at the frost blooming across the window like a flower that no one asked for. The candle burns lower than usual tonight. You feel it in your chest, a kind of tightening. Not fear, not quite grief, something in between. You whisper something, just once. Maybe her name, maybe not. You're not sure anymore. You lie down and hope the frost reaches your dreams. Because maybe there, at least, you'll remember her, and not just her number. You don't dream. Or maybe you do, but the workhouse has made your dreams so quiet that even you can't hear them anymore. The bell rings before dawn. You rise before it finishes its second clang. Not because you're eager, but because delay equals danger. Today, you're sent to the storeroom. Not for punishment. Not exactly. More of a rotation. Or maybe a test. The storeroom is tucked behind the kitchen, wedged between the coal chamber and the dry goods closet. It smells like spilled barley and mildew. There's barely enough light to see, and the candle you're given has already burned halfway down its wick. You're not alone in here. There's a man sorting sacks, thin, tall, with the look of someone who once knew math. He doesn't speak, but he nods. You nod back. This is your new coworker. Silent agreement is all that's needed. Your job is to inventory the food supplies. That means weighing potatoes, counting empty salt sacks, checking for weevils in the oats. The irony: you're handling more food than you've seen in a week, but you're forbidden to taste any of it. Mainstream fact: stealing food in a Victorian workhouse. Even a spoonful of flour was grounds for solitary confinement or worse. Many chose starvation over punishment. You pick up a biscuit from a shelf. It's round, hard, a little green at the edge. You turn it in your fingers not to eat, just to feel its weight. The man behind you whispers, "They bake that in '89. You glance at him. He smiles just a little. It's older than half the board members. You want to laugh. You can feel it bubbling, but you swallow it. Instead, you say, "Why keep it?" He shrugs. They say it keeps the mice out. Quirky detail. Some storerooms kept moldy bread and biscuits as deterrents, believing the smell would scare rats away. In practice, it didn't. By midday, your hands are covered in flour dust and your nose is stuffed with the scent of onions. You've recounted the same 5 bags of lentils 3 times because the numbers never match. Inventory is a fiction, the man says. But it's a tidy fiction. You like him. He speaks softly, carefully, like words cost something, and he can only afford a few. After lunch, a chunk of boiled beetroot and broth that tastes like regret. He tells you something. Have you seen the hatch? You shake your head. He walks you to the far corner of the storeroom, behind a leaning shelf of tinned meat and overstocked vinegar. There, hidden beneath a warped floorboard, is a trap door. It opens without a sound. Beneath it, darkness. And a smell. Coal dust. Earth. Dampness. You can crawl through it, he says. Out under the fence. But it only works if you're small. Or desperate, you ask. Have you used it? He looks away. No. But someone will. You stare at the hole for a long time, and then close it. That night, you return to the dormitory. Everyone is restless. You feel it in the way people breathe more shallow, more staggered. There's a storm coming. Not outside, inside. And sure enough, at lights out, someone snaps. It's the boy 3 cots down, the one who counts the cracks in the ceiling. He stands up and screams, "They buried my brother without telling me." The dorm explodes into movement, not chaos, just noise. Creaking cots, gasping breaths, a cup falling. The matron bursts in seconds later with 2 attendants. The boy keeps yelling, keeps screaming. Not words anymore, just rage. They wrestle him down. He fights harder than you imagined possible. You freeze. Everyone freezes. You do nothing. Because if you do something, you're next. They drag him out. You hear him screaming down the hall, into the night. Then nothing. He's gone. Just like the red-haired girl. Just like the fevered woman. Just like so many numbers you no longer hear during roll call. Historians still argue whether these outbursts were signs of madness or moments of clarity. When the body rebels, maybe the soul is just trying to wake up. You lie in bed, heart thudding, and you understand, deeply and without question. The silence here is not peace. It is survival. You close your eyes and listen to what's left of your courage whispering. Soon, you wake not to the bell, but to singing. Only, it's not real singing. Not aloud. Just a voice low and ragged humming something that might have once been a hymn or a lullaby. You crack one eye open. It's still dark. Pre-dawn. The room is thick with sleep. The humming stops. A shuffle. Then silence. Someone's testing the air. The edges of rule. You understand that now. The bell rings 15 minutes later. You're already on your feet. Today is Sunday. Not a day of rest. A day of pretend. You're ushered into the chapel. A drafty stone room that smells like mildew and forgotten mercy. The benches are unvarnished, and the hymnals are held together with string and size. You sit, hands in lap, back straight. The service begins. The curate is a lean man with a mustache that wobbles when he speaks. He opens the Book of Common Prayer and reads a passage about obedience and humility. His voice is theatrical, rich with flourishes, as though God might be listening just outside the window. No one in the room is listening, because this is not salvation. This is theater. Mainstream fact. Victorian workhouses mandated church attendance on Sundays, often with sermons focused on moral failure, discipline, and the nobility of poverty, ironically delivered by well-fed clergymen in tailored cassocks. He drones on. You recite the responses with your tongue, but not your mind. Around you, faces blur. Some mouths move. Some stare at nothing. One girl near the back picks at a thread on her sleeve. A man in the front row has a bandage around his eye. You recognize him from the infirmary wing. He's mouthing something to himself, not the prayers. A different rhythm. You know better than to look for too long. The curate begins a hymn. All things bright and beautiful. The irony cuts deeper than the frostbite. You don't sing. You move your lips just enough. After the service, The guardians stroll the halls again. Their Sunday rounds. A woman with a lavender hat and too many rings asks to see your sleeping arrangements. She remarks how quaint the quarters are. She lifts your blanket with 2 fingers and sniffs. You want to say, "Did you smell the graveyard behind the fence?" 2, but you say nothing. You smile. A brittle little curve. And she nods approvingly. Later. The staff distributes pamphlets donations from a local church group. Folded papers that read, "Diligence is grace and God helps the industrious." Some even have poems. One reads, "Let labor cleanse your soul anew. With broken hands. Be born anew." You try not to laugh. It would come out too loud. Quirky detail. Some religious charities included moralizing poetry in their donations printed on bread wrappers, soap boxes, or even stitched into clothing. In the afternoon, you're given something rare, 1 hour of open air. Not freedom, just movement. You're herded into the main yard and told to walk laps. No running, no talking, just pacing in slow circles while the staff watches from behind the windows, drinking tea. The snow has turned slushy. It sticks to your boots in clumps. The sky is colorless, but still you walk, because walking means air. Walking means no laundry steam, no coughs, no screams. You pass someone and feel them press something into your hand. You don't look. You wait until the next lap, palming it in your coat. A matchstick and a scrap of cloth, folded around it. A message Tuesday, after midnight. Coal shed, no name. No signature. No instructions. Just a whisper on paper. You tuck it into your sleeve and keep walking. Keep pacing. Keep quiet. That night, back in the dorm, you unfold the cloth again under your blanket. The match is real. The message hasn't changed. Tuesday, after midnight. 2 days. Your heart beats like it's been unchained. You lie there thinking, can I do it? Can I leave? Can I find the fence and not be seen? Can I outrun the ledger, the matron, the bell? You don't sleep. You rehearse. The path to the shed, the corner behind the compost pit, the broken floorboard in the storeroom. You trace every step in your head like it's a prayer. Historians still argue whether the few who escaped Victorian workhouses found true freedom or just a colder cage. Most were never heard from again. But you think, maybe I don't need to be heard from. Maybe it's enough to leave, to not vanish quietly, to choose your own silence. You close your eyes and whisper the word like a mantra. Tuesday. Monday comes like a sentence you've been dreading. The air is thick, the sky the color of tin, and your limbs feel heavier not from sleep deprivation, but from anticipation. One more day. Just one more. But the workhouse doesn't care about your countdown. You're assigned to chimney detail, not climbing them. Thank heaven not today. At least, that task's reserved for boys light enough to squeeze through soot-choked brick. No, you're cleaning hearths, scraping ash from long-dead fires that warmed rooms you'll never be allowed to enter. You're handed a bent poker and a bucket. Your fingers ache from cold, but the poker burns to the touch. Always the paradox cold room. Hot metal, bruised knees, flaming knuckles, too little and too much at once. You kneel in front of the first hearth. A grand thing with cracked green tiles and a mantle carved with roses. You scrape slowly, letting your thoughts drift. Tuesday. Coal shed. After midnight. You glance behind you. A matron stands just out of reach. Arms folded. Eyes like nails hammered into your spine. You return to scraping. By midday, your knees are blackened. Your bucket is full. You smell like smoke and something older, soot and submission. At the third fireplace, something odd happens. You find a note, stuffed behind the grate. charred around the edges but still legible. It reads, "We left through the cellar. The bars were loose. Don't trust the one with the limp." That's all. You turn it over. No name. No date. You pocket it before the matron sees. Someone else tried this. Maybe they failed. Maybe they didn't. Either way, they left a map. Quirky detail. Victorian workhouses sometimes had secret passageways originally built for servants or coal delivery. Some were forgotten. Others weren't. You finish your shift in silence. Return your tools. Wash your hands in water that smells faintly of coal dust and soap. You eat a crust of bread for supper. Less than usual. You don't complain. Because the less you eat, the quieter your steps. That evening, the dorm is too quiet. You feel it before you hear it. The breathing is wrong. Too shallow. Too uniform. You glance across the aisle and see the boy in cot 9 staring at the ceiling, eyes wide open. Unblinking. His hands are folded too neatly. He's listening. Not to you. To everyone. Someone knows something's coming. You hide your matchstick deeper in your sleeve and think of the note, "Don't trust the one with the limp." Cot 12. That's the man with the uneven gait. Always last to line up. Always smiling a second too late. He's watching now. He knows. Tuesday arrives behind your eyes before it touches the sky. You move through the day like a shadow laundry detail. A second round of hearth cleaning. A sermon about patience delivered in an accent that mispronounces pauper. You listen. You endure. You wait. After supper, you manage to sneak a moment in the storeroom. The same man from before is there, counting sacks again. He sees you, nods once, then mouths 2 words. "It's ready." You don't lie down that night. You wait for the snores to settle into rhythm. You count them, like drum beats. You slip out of bed with the grace of a stolen breath. Your matchstick in one hand, your heart in the other. Past the first hall, past the infirmary door. It's closed tonight. No screams, no sobs. Just the silence of endings. You reach the coal shed. It yawns open like a mouth. Inside, 2 others are waiting. One is the boy from laundry duty. The other is the girl who limps from the scald on her calf. Both look at you with faces too pale for confidence. You whisper. Now they nod. You crouch, move behind the bins, past the barrels, to the warped plank behind the coal pile. You lift it. A tunnel. Barely wide enough. Just blackness. The girl pulls out a stub of candle. You strike your match. The flame wavers, catches, and the tunnel fills with orange breath. Mainstream fact: a handful of successful escape stories exist most incomplete. Names scrubbed, outcomes unknown, but the paths they took often involved coal tunnels, broken fences, servant passages, or pure desperation. You crawl first. The ground is wet. The smell is thick. The walls scrape your elbows, and you keep going. You don't stop. Then, light. Not much. Just a crack. You push. The grate moves. And suddenly you're out. The air hits you like a slap. Cold. Wet. Real. You blink up at a sky that isn't painted on a chapel ceiling. A street lamp flickers in the distance. You turn to help the others out, but only one comes. The boy. The girl is gone. You both stare at the hole. You don't speak. You run. Your feet slap the cobblestones, hard and frantic, echoing through the alleyways like a second heartbeat. You don't know where you're going, only where you're not going back. The boy runs beside you silent, nimble, terrified. Neither of you speak. Talking feels like it might slow you down, or worse, make the moment real. The world outside the workhouse is colder than you imagined. Not in temperature, but in truth. The wind doesn't carry the cries of babies or the bark of matrons. It carries nothing. It just cuts through you, as if to say freedom is indifferent. It won't miss you if you fall. You take a turn, then another. Streets all look the same in the dark black buildings with shuttered windows. Alleyways full of ash bins and puddles reflecting sickly light. Somewhere behind you, a dog barks. You freeze. So does the boy. You look at each other. Still no words. You move again. Eventually, you stop beneath a railway bridge. It smells like soot and something dead. But it's dry. Sheltered. Hidden. You sit. Finally, the boy speaks first. Barely above a whisper. Do you think she got caught? You nod. Then shake your head. You don't know. He presses his face into his knees. He's not crying. Just bracing himself. You reach into your sleeve and pull out the matchstick, the one that guided you here. You break it in half. Give him the other piece. It feels like something sacred. Mainstream fact, escaped paupers often survive just a few days outside workhouses. Many were recaptured. Some froze and others simply vanished. Records weren't always kept. That was the point. You wake with the start an hour later. You slept. Somehow. Your legs are numb. Your back aches. The boy is still beside you, his lips slightly blue. You shake him awake. He groans. You both get up. Keep walking. Daylight begins to creep across the sky like a guilty thief. Pale and slow, you duck into a side lane as carts begin to rattle by. The city is waking. You are not part of it. That's when you spot the sign. Workman's Diner, 1 penny a bowl. You pat your pockets. Nothing. The boy looks at you. I'll ask, he says. You shake your head. We'll be recognized. He shrugs. We already were. He walks into the diner. You wait outside. 5 minutes. 10. Then he comes back with a crust. Just one. Stale and cracked. But food? He hands it to you. I told them I was from the countryside. Looking for work. Said I lost my shoes. You nod, chewing slowly. It tastes like not dying. You find shelter in a rail yard. Rusty cars. Barrels. A half-collapsed shed where someone's already made a home, a pile of rags in the corner. A can with 2 buttons and a coin inside. You don't take the coin. You sit. You talk. The boy says his name is Lem. Just Lem. He used to be a lamplighter's apprentice. Got caught stealing coal. His sentence 3 years in the workhouse. He made it one. You tell him your number. Not your name. Because you're not sure who you are now. Quirky detail. Escaped workhouse inmates often used false names or none at all. Being known meant being traceable. Names were a luxury of the safe. As night falls again, Lem makes a joke. Maybe we'll join a ship crew, or dig graves, or start a bakery. You know, normal things. You laugh. It hurts. You light the last half of the match. Let it flicker in the wind for just a second. Then snuff it out. The light was never meant to burn long. Just enough to find the dark. But freedom is not safety. You realize that on the 3rd day, when the rain doesn't stop and Lem's cough gets worse. When you try to ask a baker for crust and he threatens to call the constable. When you look into the window of a school and realize the children inside aren't silent. You're not part of their world. You're not part of any world. You're in between. You curl beneath an awning that night, soaked and shivering. You whisper to Lem, "Do you ever miss it?" He doesn't answer for a long time. Then, only the walls, not what was inside them. You nod, because walls meant rules. And rules, no matter how cruel, gave shape to days. Now your days are shapeless. Just cold breath and motion. Historians still argue whether those who escaped workhouses truly found liberation or only a different kind of hunger. But you're starting to understand something. Freedom isn't the absence of cages. It's the moment you stop needing one. The fifth night is the coldest. The kind of cold that creeps into your bones, not suddenly, but slyly, like it's always been there, just waiting for you to sit still long enough to notice. You and Lem shelter in the back of a disused carriage beside the rail yard. It rocks slightly with the wind, a mournful sway like the memory of a lullaby. Rain drums on the tin roof above you. Not heavy, but constant. The world beyond the door has shrunk to a gray smear of fog and puddle light. Lem hasn't spoken much all day. His cough has turned deep, rattling. You share the last of a stolen carrot, if you can call it that. Mostly root, mostly regret. You both chew in silence. I dreamed of butter, he says suddenly. Just a pat. On a knife. Dripping. You laugh through your nose. I dreamed of socks. Wool ones. Dry. You both smile. Then the silence returns. Longer now? More solemn? You know what's coming. You just don't want to say it. The next morning, Lem doesn't wake easily. His skin is pale and his eyes flutter. You press your hand to his forehead. Hot. Too hot. His body is burning while the world outside shivers. A betrayal from within. You don't panic. You just move. Slowly, carefully. You leave him bundled under the rags and climb out of the rail car. Your legs feel weak, your chest hollow. You haven't eaten in a day. Your last sip of water came from a fountain near the post office where no one was looking. You wander until you find a signed shelter for the poor. Hot tea, prayer, guidance. You hesitate. You remember the workhouse sermons, the hollow prayers, the words carved in stone, "He who does not work shall not eat." But Lem is burning, and you are not made of pride. You enter. The air smells like starch and soap and something faintly sweet. The people here look tired, but not broken. A man with kind eyes and a face lined by worry offers you a cup of something warm. You don't ask what it is, you just drink. It tastes like comfort diluted in water. You tell him my friend is sick. He nods. They send someone. A woman in gray wool. Sleeves rolled up. You lead her back to the yard. The carriage. She bends over Lem. Feels his neck. Opens one eye. We'll take him in, she says. Not what's his name. Not where are your papers, just we'll take him. You sit outside while they lift him into a cart. He doesn't stir, but he breathes. You don't ride with them, because you know the truth, you wouldn't be allowed inside. They take the sick, the frail, but the able-bodied. Those are sent elsewhere. So you wait until the cart disappears, and then, for the first time in a week, you're alone. You find your way to a churchyard, not because you're religious, but because it's quiet. The trees drip with rain. The gravestones lean in odd directions, like they're listening. You sit on a bench and watch the crows hop between stones. You realize you don't know how old Lem is, or if Lem is even his name. You only know he ran beside you. And in this world, that means something. You pull out the scrap of cloth from your coat pocket, the one that once held the match. The message faded now, but it's still with you. Proof that once someone believed in escape, even if it wasn't meant to be you. Mainstream fact. Most escapes were anonymous, their outcomes unknown. Some returned in rags, some found work, some died, but the stories lived on in whispers and broken windows and footprints beyond the fence. The sky clears by afternoon, just a little. You walk, past people with baskets, past dogs and boots and bread you can't afford. You find a crate behind a tailor shop and curl beneath it. You sleep. And for once, you dream. Not of workhouses, not of punishment, but of walking, just walking. Freely, aimlessly, with no number pinned to your chest, no name scratched off a ledger, just legs, and breath, and motion, Quirky detail. Some of the poorest survivors of the workhouse system became what were called trampers vagrants, who wandered from parish to parish, living on crusts and mercy, constantly moving because stillness meant suspicion. You wake just before dawn. Your joints ache. Your ribs show through your tunic. Your fingers are cracked, but you're outside. Still outside. Still you. And in this moment, thin, tired, forgotten, you realize something. You may not be free, but you are gone. And they can't bring you back. The days begin to bleed together. Not because nothing happens, but because everything is survival. Each moment is a small equation. Is this safe? Is this warm? Is this food? You find corners of the city where no one looks twice. Behind the fishmonger's crates, beneath the carpenter's stall, once in the back of a printing shop, where discarded pamphlets become makeshift insulation. You read them sometimes, not for truth but for words, because when no one calls your name anymore, even the words temperance is the way feel like conversation. You become invisible with intent, strategic silence, clean enough not to raise alarms, dirty enough not to be expected to speak. You learn which stalls leave scraps, which dogs bark, which doors creak too loudly to sleep beside. You pass the workhouse once not on purpose, just drifting. Its windows are shut, the gate's locked, but the smell is the same. Boiled wool, cold stone, rules. You watch a cart roll up to the gate and unload sacks of flour. A matron appears, clipboard in hand. You vanish before she sees you. Because you've earned your ghosthood now, you're not real to them anymore. You don't plan where you'll sleep that night. You stop making plans altogether. You just listen to wind, to footsteps, to the sound of boots that walk with purpose and those that don't. It's a week later when you hear his name. Lem. You're behind the bakery, sorting crusts. Two women are talking on the other side of the alley. Said he's alive. That boy. Fever broke. They moved him to the mission dorm. You stop. You don't breathe. They keep talking about something else. About sugar prices. But it's enough. He's alive. You don't go to the mission house right away. It feels too much like hoping. But 2 days later, you pass by. You see him through a window, wrapped in a blanket, sipping something from a mug. He's thinner, paler, but real. You don't knock. You just watch. And smile. Mainstream fact. Some religious charities in late Victorian London began offering transitional housing to young boys and girls who'd escaped or aged out of the workhouse system. These were rare and not always safe, but to some, they were a step up. You leave the alley without being seen. There's no reunion. But you know now not everyone is lost. Some just get found elsewhere. You return to the rail yard that night and find a small note scratched into the side of the old cart. Butter someday. No name. Just a promise. A joke. Half remembered. And somehow, it warms you. Time passes in soft, uneven strides. Your face grows thinner. Your shadow longer. You forget what day it is, but not what you are out. You hear of others. Whispers. A girl who vanished from the laundry and turned up in a seaside town, sweeping docks for bread and shillings. A boy who made it to the factory district, forged his age, and now wears boots that match. And some who didn't make it. You never ask too much, because you don't need the endings. You just need to know escape is not a myth, that you weren't foolish to try. One evening, as the sun dies low over the rooftops, you return to the same bench in the churchyard. It's warmer now. Spring, maybe. The ground is soft. You take a pencil stub from your coat, one you traded a crust for weeks ago. You write your number on the back of a pamphlet. Then you write something else. I got out. You fold the paper and leave it beneath the bench. Not for them. For the next one. The next ghost who sits here and wonders if they'll survive a night. Quirky truth. Years later, during renovations, city workers found dozens of scraps hidden beneath benches, staircases, and gutters, scrawled notes, symbols, sometimes just initials. Some were angry, some were prayers, some were proof. You never return to the workhouse. Even if you starve, you know this much. You'd rather fade in the wind than kneel inside those walls again. Historians still argue whether escape was an act of rebellion or an act of faith. You know the answer. It was both. Because that's what freedom is. A risk. A wound. A whisper that says there is more than this. And somehow, you listened. You walk differently now. Not with pride. Pride is a luxury, but with something firmer. A quiet steadiness. Like you've learned how to carry the cold without flinching. Your coat is still the same. Still thin. Still fraying at the cuffs. But your eyes see more. The city opens in small ways when you've lived outside its rules. You notice which doors close quickly. Which chimneys smoke all day. Which windows flicker with candlelight long into the night and which never light at all. You've become part of London's other map. Not the one drawn by carriages and parishes and posted rates. The one traced by footsteps, shadows, sleeping places, whispered names. And somewhere along the way, the fear of being found faded. Not because the risk is gone, but because you've changed. You're not the same soul who entered that workhouse gate, who let a number be pinned to their chest, who trembled beneath scratchy blankets and swallowed questions like stones. No. Now you look up. You listen harder. You remember everything. And some nights, when the wind howls low through alley bricks, you catch yourself whispering a name. Not yours. Theirs. Lem. Mary. Harold. Red-haired girl. Names that never made it into the ledgers. Stories that never made it into sermons. But you carry them. Because someone should. Mainstream fact records of Victorian workhouse inmates were incomplete, often incorrect, and occasionally destroyed outright. Thousands vanished into statistical oblivion. But outside the workhouse, their stories moved like rain unseen, unstoppable. One day, at the back of a printer's stall, you find an old paper, a story about reform, about new laws, about shutting down the worst of the poorhouses. You don't believe it. Not really, but you pocket the page anyway. Because even a whisper of change matters. Even the idea that someone, somewhere, is watching finally can warm a soul like a cup of tea on a frost-bitten morning. Quirky note. In later years, inspectors found messages scrawled beneath workhouse floorboards. Please, warnings, even jokes. Bread here is as old as sin. One simply read, still here. You wonder what yours would have said. Now, the days pass softer. You work odd jobs. Sweep steps. Clean gutters. Fetch things. A woman gives you a coin one day, not out of pity, but for doing well. You thank her. It's the first time you've said thank you without fear in months. One evening, you pass the bench in the churchyard again. There's someone new sitting there. Young. Tired. Watching crows, you don't speak, but you leave a crust on the stone beside them. Wrapped in paper. No name, no mark, just a small act of rebellion, and an old pencil stub tucked inside. Because you understand now, the workhouse was never about labor. It was about forgetting. Forgetting that you mattered. Forgetting that you were someone. But out here, every breath you take, every step you make through the dirty alleys and chiming streets and butchers' back doors is proof. You didn't forget. You didn't vanish. You're still here. still walking, still free. And now, as the lights flicker low and your breath settles into its slow rhythm, let yourself rest in the knowledge that even the harshest walls can't contain a soul that refuses to bow. You've walked through the halls of silence, through the cold echo of punishment and shame, and found your way out the other side not untouched, but unbroken. Let that stay with you, gentle and steady, like the warmth of a match in a snowstorm. Let your limbs grow heavy now. Let the images fade the gray walls, the scratch of straw, the boots on stone floors. They can't reach you here. Not anymore. Because this moment belongs to you. Here. There are no numbers, no bells, no buckets, only quiet, only breath. The past can rest now, and so can you. Let yourself drift, like soot into wind, like fog off the rooftops, like a whisper finally let go. You made it. You got out. You are free.